So, a question I get literally all the time from folks just starting out is, hey, should I learn Power BI or Python first? And, it's a completely natural question. But honestly, it kind of misses the entire mark. If you really want to succeed in this field, we've got to shift your focus away from this pure obsession with software and bring it right back to fundamental business problem solving. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unpack the true analytical mindset and discover how to turn raw data into actual impactful decisions.
All right, let's dive right in by completely shattering a super common beginner myth. You've probably heard it. The idea that data analysts just sit around all day making dashboards. People tend to think the job is, just hammering out SQL queries or making really colorful pie charts in Excel. But here's the surprising truth. Actually, it's kind of a wake-up call. A dashboard is usually the very last thing a professional data analyst creates, not the first. Way before a single chart ever hits a screen, an analyst spends the bulk of their time simply trying to wrap their head around a core business problem. To put this into perspective, imagine for a second that you own an online store. Last month, your sales were growing beautifully. Everything's great. But this month, out of nowhere, they suddenly plummet by 30%. Ouch, right? Now, you already have thousands of rows of sales data just sitting there in your system. The real issue here isn't whether you have the data. The real issue is, can you figure out exactly why that 30% drop happened? And that is exactly where data analysis truly begins, not with some fancy software platform, but with a burning business question.
And this distinction reveals something absolutely crucial about corporate priorities. Look, companies do not hire data analysts just to act as human calculators. They don't need you to just read a report saying, hey, revenue was $2 million. They hire analysts to answer why it changed and what actually drove that change. Think about it. Every single department, sales, marketing, HR, they're generating millions of records every single day. Without analysis, those records are literally just numbers taking up space on a hard drive. Your real job as an analyst is transforming those static numbers into actionable answers that actually drive better decisions. Think about walking into a massive library, but every single book has just been dumped randomly onto the floor. Thousands of books, no shelves, zero categories, no labels whatsoever. Now, technically, all the information you need is right there in the room, right? But finding anything useful? Yeah, that's practically impossible. And honestly, business data often looks exactly like this. It is a chaotic mass of Excel files, CSVs, customer records, website traffic, you name it. So your very first job isn't even to analyze. It's to organize that information and make sense of the chaos.
So how on earth do we get from that messy floor to nice, organized shelves? Well, professional analysts follow a super reliable 6-step workflow. First up, they understand the business problem. Like, what decision actually needs to be made here? Second, they collect the right data. Then comes step 3, clean. Fixing missing values, duplicate entries, typing mistakes, the whole shebang. Step 4 is explore, just kind of poking around for unexpected trends. Step 5 is where you actually analyze, asking those really deep, targeted questions. And finally, step 6, communicate. And I want you to notice something here. Communicating, which could be building that dashboard or maybe just sending a really good email, is only the very final step of this entire process. Now, you might be wondering what this actually looks like in practice. Let's dive into a practical example to really lock this concept in. We're going to look at a pretty engaging case study about an online clothing company that finds itself facing a sudden, unexpected crisis. Okay, picture the scenario. The CEO is reviewing the monthly reports and notices something incredibly alarming. Revenue has just tanked by 20%. Almost immediately, the non-analysts in the room start making wild assumptions. They totally panic. They start guessing that customers must hate the new product line, or maybe competitors slash their prices, or that the overall economy has just, taken a massive downturn. But an analyst doesn't guess. An analyst investigates. They start comparing this month's sales with previous months. They check out the product categories. And then they look at customer locations. And suddenly, the data reveals a crystal clear story. Sales in City A, totally normal. Sales in City B, normal. But sales in City C are drastically lower. So this revenue drop wasn't some global company failure at all. It was actually isolated to one single specific location. By digging just a little bit deeper into City C, the analyst uncovers the root cause. And guess what? It wasn't marketing, it wasn't pricing, and it definitely wasn't product quality. It was a logistics problem. A major warehouse issue had delayed deliveries in that specific region for almost 2 weeks, which caused a massive wave of order cancellations. This just goes to show you exactly how powerful analysis is when it replaces panicked assumptions with hard, undeniable evidence.
Naturally, after seeing the power of this kind of investigation, people always bring the conversation right back to the tools. They're like, okay, so what software do I actually need to learn to do this? And yeah, for sure, you're likely going to use Excel, SQL, Python, Power BI, Tableau, Looker, R, or maybe even AI. These are the common instruments of the trade. But I actually want you to pivot away from focusing on them for a second.
Because here is the thing. Tools change, software updates, but thinking does not. Consider this comparison for a moment. Think about owning a stethoscope versus actually being a medical doctor. Look, just because you run to the store and buy a stethoscope, that doesn't automatically make you a doctor, right? In that exact same way, just memorizing where the buttons are in Power BI or learning the syntax in Python doesn't automatically make someone a professional data analyst. At the end of the day, they are just your instruments.
The real skill, the one thing that truly separates the high-level professionals from the absolute beginners is this: endless curiosity. It's that natural, relentless drive to investigate the numbers rather than just accepting them at face value. A professional analyst never just looks at a metric, shrugs, and moves on. No way. They are always digging.
And you know what? This applies to the good news just as much as the bad. Most people see profits go up and they just celebrate, pop the champagne, right? But a true analyst looks at that upward trend and immediately asks, why? Why exactly did profits increase? What did we do right here so we can replicate it? And they apply that exact same investigative rhythm to negative metrics too. When churn spikes, meaning a bunch of customers are suddenly canceling and leaving, they don't just report the bad news and hide. They ask, wait, why did customers leave? Was it a weird product issue, a customer service failure, or did a competitor just drop a brand new feature? The absolutely crucial point here is this unyielding habit. When expenses jump, they're right there asking, why did costs rise? Which specific department just spent more? It is this exact habit of relentlessly asking better, deeper questions that forms the actual core of a data analyst's job. Every single piece of data tells a story, and asking why is exactly how you read it. Brings us to our final thought for this explainer. As you continue your own journey in data, I really want you to take a hard look at how you're spending your time and ask yourself this one question. Are you just memorizing tools? Are you actually learning how to think? Because turning raw data into critical business decisions requires a specific mindset, not just a software license. If you cultivate that endless curiosity and follow the workflow structure, the tools will naturally fall right into place. So the next time you open up a spreadsheet, I challenge you to ask yourself, what is the actual business problem I'm going to solve today?